Hi there. In this video, I want to show you how closely our two flagship products work together by going through a project I did recently. By the end, you won't just be thinking SmartConnect and Popdock forever, you'll want SmartConnect and Popdock for everything. The project I want to use for my example involves an integration between Business Central, on-premise, and gunbroker.com. Gunbroker has a well-documented REST API which we were able to use for this project, and we already have a standard connector for Business Central, so no worries. When we were first approached, we were given two requirements. First, for every order sold through Gunbroker, create or edit a customer record in Business Central. And second, import the order to Business Central as a sales order. Sounds pretty simple, right? Upon review of the API, we actually ran into a couple of issues. First, buyer information we needed in order to create or update the customer was actually coming from a different endpoint. The choices for getting the data from this endpoint were either passing a specific customer ID or to pull all of the buyers. And that could be a pretty long list. Second, the only usable filter on the sold order endpoint was a date range. We could pull all of the orders in the past 2 or 3 days, but we had no way to identify whether or not we had already processed the order into Business Central. Third, the order sold list didn't actually have the item SKU on it. We needed data from the items endpoint to make that work. Then, while we were building the integration, we remembered that if an order fails to import because of a problem at the line level, the header still gets created. This caused our integration to think the order had been created, even though it hadn't. It sounds like a long list of issues for such a simple sales order integration, but honestly, that's a pretty common list. In order to work around all of these issues, we took advantage of the customer's Popdock subscription. In order to make the rest of the resolutions work, we first needed to set up the order sold endpoint in Popdock. This meant configuring the REST connector in Popdock to connect to Gunbroker. Gunbroker uses an exchange token that expires after 10 minutes. We had no issues setting this up, but chose to renew the token with every refresh in order to help performance. Next, we added the order sold endpoint as a list. Once we had the base list set up, we could start knocking out the issues. The first one was to get all the required fields for the Business Central customer integration. If you'll remember, the data was stored in 2 different endpoints. To overcome this, we used the parent list feature. While setting up the user contact endpoint, we set the order sold list as the parent and joined it based on buyer user ID. This sets up joins so that only users contained in the order sold list will be returned, ensuring that we get all of the customers and only the customers that we need. The user contact info list then gets set up as a data source inside of SmartConnect so that the Business Central customers process only creates or updates the customers who have an order that's about to be imported. With the customers sorted, next we needed to suss which orders hadn't been imported to BC yet. To do this, we used a compare list in Popdock. Compare lists allow you to compare one list to another and return records from the first list that either exist or do not exist in the second list. In our case, we were looking for ones that do not. We needed to configure the standard Business Central connector, which created a default list showing all sales orders. Next, we created a compare list showing the difference between the orders sold list and the sales orders list. In case you didn't notice, we're comparing 2 lists of data that are from 2 different systems, and that's a pretty cool feature. So now we had a list of orders that existed in Gunbroker, but did not exist in Business Central. But if you'll remember, our list of orders to import still doesn't include the SKU we need for the Business Central import. To add the SKU as a field to our orders import list, we needed to use a join list. We needed to add the items endpoint as a list first. In order to ensure that we didn't get all of the possible items, which was a really long list, we set the orders sold list as the parent. Just like when we did it for customers, now we're only getting a list of items that were on orders that might need to be imported. That helps for performance when we get to the next step where we were setting up the join list. With the join list, we could have joined more than 2 tables if we needed to, but in this case, we only needed the 2. Notice that we have joined the compare list that we created earlier to the items list we just added. Just like with the customers, the final piece was to set up the final list as a source in SmartConnect, and now we can import the orders, which is actually how we found the next issue. When an import fails at the line level, the header still gets created. To work around this was actually pretty simple now that you know all of the previous resolutions. First, we created a compare list that looked for sales order headers that don't exist in the sales order lines list. Next, just to be sure they weren't on They weren't there on purpose. We joined the compare list to the original order sold list. This gave us a list of gun broker orders that had headers in Business Central but no lines. Back in SmartConnect, we set up the source to read the final list and then set up a process to be for delete. And there you go, last issue result. As you can see, this is yet another example of how perfectly Popdock and SmartConnect work together for everything. If you'd like to learn more about these products, please head on over to our YouTube channel where you'll find a veritable cornucopia of information. Done with videos and want to start building? Head on over to popdock.com or smartconnect.com to start a free trial. Thanks.